So we will begin first with recovery of olfactory capacity following a COVID-19 infection by Sophie Tampere. And Sophie, in fact, is a doctor in cognitive science and sensory neuroscience. She's associate professor in enology in the research unit in ISVV in Bordeaux, in Villeneuve-d'Ornon. Sophie is a researcher and she's studying perfume and aroma, and she has realized her PhD in cognitive science and sensory neuroscience. The work was in fact in collaboration between ISVV and the University of Lyon 2. She had become specialist in the study of olfactory learning applied to enology. Her research are more particularly devoted to the study of the olfactory ability of wine expert. And so for now, the proposal is to see the recording, in fact, of the talk of Sophie. She cannot be here today with us, but at the end of the presentation, I will try to answer to your question about it. And so I think, Julien, that we can now begin the talk of Sophie. Thank you.
Dear everybody, I'm Sophie Tampere, researcher and teacher at the Institut des Sciences de la Vigne et du Vin Bordeaux, and I'm working on olfactory training in the context of wine tasting. Thank you to the IVES team. I'm very pleased to present our article entitled Recovery of Olfactory Capacity Following a COVID-19 Infection. It is a literature review on olfactory training for olfactory disorders, and this work was realized with Dr. Gilles Sicard, a specialist of olfaction, and Professor Gilles Derevel, a specialist of oenology and sensory analysis. Indeed, in the case of COVID-19 infection, a significant percentage of subjects reports a loss of smell, called anosmia, or a global diminution of sensitivity called hyposmia. These olfactory disorders are sometimes associated with a diminution of the gustatory and somesthetic perception. Moreover, some subjects also report a distortion of quality perception after this anosmia period. For example, where they smell a wine, they perceived a constant unpleasant odor, such as plastic, burnt, or gasoline. Some subjects also report olfactory hallucination called phantosmia. It is important to remember that these olfactory disorders can have other origins, and with the exception of the current pandemic, 5% of the population may have anosmia and 15% may have hyposmia. The positive point in the case of post-infectious olfactory disorders is that these olfactory problems are not irremediable, but can go on for several weeks for some patients. For example, in the case of COVID-19 infection, a recent study reported that only 50% of patients regain their ability after 40 days. Finally, olfactory training needs to be adapted to the virus infection method on the olfactory system. There are both possibilities. First, an indirect action of the virus on the olfactory system. The coronavirus could induce an inflammation of tissues, which leads to the occlusion of these narrow olfactory tracts, as you can see on the figure. And such obstruction has an impact of the subject's ability to detect or identify odors by hindering access to the receptive smells, the olfactory neurons, which are consequently underused. However, a recent study reported evidence that the olfactory sensory neurons are also infected, and the virus remains in the olfactory epithelium and in the olfactory bulb in some patients. The virus could enter the nervous system via the olfactory tract. Using neuroimagery techniques, researchers observed inflammation of the olfactory bulb and also modification of the orbitofrontal cortex activity in some patients with persistent loss of smell. Simple exercise could optimize the chances of recovery. For example, classical training throughout repeated exposure to odorants. The effect of repeated exposure to odorants has been demonstrated in various clinical studies. And this type of protocol is integrated in international recommendation for the treatment of anosmia after COVID-19 infection. This training has an impact at the peripheral level of the olfactory system, at the level of the epithelium, the olfactory epithelium, but also at the central level of the olfactory system. Typically, 4 molecules or essential oils are used in this type of protocol, but it is also possible to use natural products such as zest, orange zest, or cloves or leaf of mint. The most important point is that to have different olfactory families such as floral, fruity, spicy, or herbal. Researchers demonstrated the effectiveness of using essential oils in non-specific concentrations. However, we recommend that you choose intense smells or high concentrations for this type of training in order to induce physiological change. The protocol is very simple. First, choose a calm moment in an odorless place, and then repeatedly sniff each odorant for 20 or 30 seconds with a pause of 30 seconds between each to avoid saturation, and after, note your perception on a logbook. Repeat this exercise daily for several weeks, and after 3 months, if you don't have a recovery your olfactory abilities, it is then possible to extend the training by repeating the exercise with other odorants. In the first weeks, this exercise can be carried out by associating the name in order to facilitate memorization, or by associating the memory of the corresponding odor to focus attention. After that, this exercise can be carried out blindly or by comparing certain smells. For example, you could compare orange zest and lemon zest, coffee and chocolate, cloves and nutmeg, and you have to focus your attention on the difference between smells and try to describe them. We recommend to take notes to observe the evolution of your perceptions. Here you can see an example of a logbook. This logbook is present in the ASVV protocol for students who present olfactory disorders after COVID-19 infection. They have to note the perceived intensity and hedonic valence for each odorant. Specialists, clinical specialists of post-infectious olfactory disorders advise to realize this this type of training twice a day, at least 3 months. Moreover, this type of training induces an olfactory recovery in nearly 2/3 of post-infectious anosmia cases. With the exception of general loss of smell, general olfactory disorders, it was demonstrated that daily exposure to odorants enhances olfactory abilities. This type of training induces physiological, neurophysiological, and cognitive modification. So the simple gest of smell a fruit, smell an aromatic compound, or taste wine and beer is a good practice to enhance your sensitivity, but also to maintain your abilities. For certain patients, the olfactory system is indirectly affected by the inflammation of tissues, and even if it would be ineffective to smell repeatedly odorants, it is important to continue exercise the process of air sampling, called sniffing. This sniff is part of the olfactory percept. And moreover, complementary training could be used. And the aim is to stimulate your olfactory system, which is no longer able to be activated by everyday smells in order to maintain its abilities. For example, you could use a training through olfactory mental imagery. The objective is to stimulate the ability to imagine smells in absence of the odorant source. In this case, you don't have to visualize the odorant source, but you have to imagine the odor, the associated odor. It is like an olfactory hallucination on demand. For example, close your eyes and imagine you are in your kitchen slicing a lemon and sniff. Perhaps you could really smell the lemon odor. In this case, you realize an olfactory mental imagery task. This competence is particularly well developed in olfactory experts, such as wine professionals, but also for perfumers. It has been proven, thanks to brain imaging measurements, that the areas of the brain activated during olfactory mental imagery are similar to those activated by smelling a real odor, a real odorant. In a previous study with one professional, it was demonstrated an effect of olfactory mental imagery on specific sensitivity and odor identification. After the training period, one professional answered their specific sensitivity for some compounds, olfactory compounds, and they enhanced the abilities to identify odor. The protocol is also simple and without specific material. First, choose a calm moment in an odorless place and try to imagine a familiar smell that you find pleasant or unpleasant. And in order to facilitate the creation of a mental olfactory image, you can close your eyes, mimic sniffing, and imagine a setting. After that, note the evolution of your mental olfactory imagery abilities on a logbook. It is important to carry out this exercise daily and to focus for about 10 days on the same odors, but after you could carry out the same task with new odorants, new smells. In conclusion, this exercise optimizes the possible recovery of olfactory acuity, but is in no way a guarantee of a recovery time and recovery rate. And we recommend to also consult a medical specialist in order to have a specific advice. And finally, note that this exercise can be carried out even under regular perceptive conditions in the absence of generalized olfactory disorders. For example, they are effective and could be adapted in the recovery of specific hyposmia and in order also to maintain your sensitivity. Thank you for your attention, and I'm sorry I can be with you tonight. So the Professor Pierre-Louis Tesset, the head of working group on olfactory disorders at Union Française des Œnologues, will be able to respond to you. Thank you, Pierre-Louis, and thank you for your attention.
Hello, good evening, good morning. I am Julien, and I am your representative tonight. So I will be in charge to ask the questions to Pierre-Louis for this time and for the next.
Yes, so thank you, Julien. Thank you to Sophie for the talk. I think that it gives some update and some element concerning the loss, in fact, of the aroma and the loss of the smell and the taste. It's a very important issue in the context because of COVID-19, of course. So I don't know if some of the colleagues attending the meeting have lost the taste or have lost the smell, but it's a real important issue now because we can see that for professional, they cannot be, of course, optimized, and so sometimes the recovery can be enough long. In fact, the point is that the recovery can take a few weeks, but for some of the people, sometimes it can take much more, and that can be creating a trouble in the professional issue for, especially for enologist people, if they have to do blend, if they have to taste wine, if they have to give, of course, an advice on a product. So it creates a situation where it isn't possible. So I can say there that it's an handicap. So we have one question. First question is from Alice Videla. Alice is saying, is it possible to use a kit like Le Nez du Vin, Nez du Vin from Jean Lenoir for training, or the aroma are too strong? So yes, probably you can use Le Nez du Vin for training. The point is to correctly choose the odor, because as was recommended by Sophie, we should take, in fact, strong odor. And you have seen that you have lemon, you have rose, you have also clove with the genol. And it was also another one that I don't remember, the fourth one, that was a taste of grass or something like that. So you need to refer to these four odorant to be probably nice, but some other can be probably taken also. So this was first question from Alice. Another question is, have you learned from these COVID-19 disorders things that could contribute to improve panel training in normal condition? Yes. Well, this is not something that we have expect actually, but maybe possibly can be finally the recovery, full recovery. This is also a point, 100% recovery, or can we increase also finally the training, the training and the perception of the flavor. So this is something probably we have to look, especially for the people who had the COVID-19. We know that for the people, of course, that didn't have COVID-19, that to do the exercise is better, and that generally we improve the perception and the threshold. So this is a point. Do we have another question? This is from Muriel Regaldo Saint-Blancard. Do you have some statistic? How many people are progressing among the sick? We don't have a statistic about the time of, I will say, proportion of recovery. And this is also one of the points, because actually we don't have the possibility to have an objective measurement of the loss of taste or smell, of the flavor perception. We can say yes, we lose, or no, we didn't lose. But the proportion, if we say it's 20%, 40%, or 60% of the flavor, it's actually we don't have objective measurement, and this is something that we have to look for. But probably we can have statistics to see the time of recovery and the number of exercise. This is something probably that we can be able to do. So it depends the person. It depends, of course, also probably of the frequency of the exercise. That is enough important. Okay, this was from Muriel Regaldo Saint-Blancard. Andriy Tarasov is asking, what is also observed the impact of COVID-19 on the perception of taste, sweet, sour, or bitter? For for this point, I can tell you, I don't know for sweet, sour, or bitter because I don't have element, but one for example, example is one of our colleagues that is enologist, the president of the International Enologist Union, for example, couldn't recognize a pastis beverage in comparison with water. It gives you really the impact that it can have in terms of taste. So you know that anise, of course, is a special flavor. It's the beverage that we have all around the Mediterranean Sea, and then it's a strong perception normally. So it gives you the strong incidence about it. So another point is also that we can lose, of course, the flavor and the taste, but we can also have what we call misleading. So, for example, you have a flavor, a specific flavor, for example, it can be the rose, and you can have a perception of something else. So it can be also misleading. And this is also one of the trouble that can appear with COVID-19. And so for recovery, when there is misleading, it looks like that it takes more time, generally. The impact is looks to be strongest on the flavor perception than in the taste perception. And the reason is also the people who say that they lose the flavor perception say that they lose at 70% or 80% the flavor perception with the nose, but it's only 60% or 20% less for the taste. And this is just because there is a trouble with what we call the retronasal perception generally. You know that this is also something that can affect in fact the process.